Hi, everybody. For my current event presentation today, I will be talking to you about Burger King's plant-based Impossible Whopper. But before going into what the Impossible Whopper is, I will give you a brief history on Burger King itself. So, Burger King, home of the Whopper, is currently the second largest fast food hamburger chain in the world. It has been committed to premium ingredients, signature recipes, and a family-friendly environment for over 50 years now. And a little fun fact is that the first Burger King restaurant was actually founded in Mattoon, Illinois in 1954. And Mattoon is right next to our little home in Charleston, Illinois at EIU. So, to go into what the Impossible Whopper is, like I said before, Burger King is known for the home of the Whopper. And in August of 2019, Burger King wanted to capitalize on the plant-based food trend and release the Impossible Whopper. So, what the original Whopper is a hamburger that consists of a meat patty, lettuce, tomatoes, mayonnaise, ketchup, pickles, and white onions, all on a sesame seed bun. But what the Impossible Whopper is instead of a meat patty, it's a veggie or plant-based patty instead that's made of soy, wheat, vegetable oil, herbs, and onion. So with this new plant-based burger, it excited vegetarian and vegan audiences because they thought this would be a new menu option for them. And it was also exciting because no fast food restaurant had done this before. But in November of 2019, customer Philip Williams actually sued Burger King because he found out that this wasn't vegetarian or vegan friendly. He found this out because he found that it was cooked on the same broiler as their other meat products, meaning there was cross-contamination and also meaning it wasn't suitable for vegetarian and vegan diets. So before I go into what stakeholders and publics involved in this case were, I'll define what stakeholders and publics actually are. Stakeholders are people who are affected in some way by the decisions of an organization, and publics are stakeholders who become more aware when they recognize a problem caused by an organization's actions. So the stakeholders and publics involved in this case were vegetarians and vegans that would possibly have this Impossible Whopper at Burger King. To define what vegetarians and vegans are, vegetarians are people who don't eat meat products, and vegans are people who don't consume any foods that come from animals, like meat and dairy products. So vegans wouldn't be allowed to have this Impossible Whopper if there's mayonnaise on it because mayonnaise consists eggs in it. But vegetarians would be allowed since they only don't eat meat products. So before I go into what the outcomes of this case were, I want to talk about a little personal story I have. My sister has been a vegan for 4 or 5 years now, and she decided to become vegan because she doesn't like the animal cruelty that goes into creating meat and dairy products. So whenever she comes home and we're here as a family, we try to have as many vegan options for her as we can because we know it is difficult for her to find those things. And although she loves this diet and it is a little healthier than what our non-vegetarian and vegan diets are, she still struggles a lot, especially when we go out to eat. Whenever we go out to eat at restaurants, we have to look at menus ahead of time to make sure that she has an option. So whenever she finds out that there is a new option on menus for her to eat, she gets very excited about it because it's just something new she can try. So the vegetarian and vegan audiences probably felt the same way whenever they found out that Burger King was going to have an Impossible Whopper that was suitable for their diets. But they were probably just as disappointed when they found out that it actually wasn't suitable for them. But after Philip Williams sued, Burger King, their partners, and other Burger King restaurant locations across the world reacted in different ways. So some of the outcomes were one, the Toronto-based restaurant brand International Incorporated who used avoidance. They did this by saying they declined to comment and they wouldn't discuss pending litigations. The second outcome was on the official launch website of the Impossible Whopper, and they said that it wasn't vegetarian or vegan friendly at the time of its launch. And they said that there is also an asterisk warning on the page highlighting its cooking methods, which I will go over later in the presentation. The third outcome was from Tony Vernelli, who is the head of international communication and marketing at Veganary, and he said, whether plant-based food has been cooked on the same grill as meat burgers makes no difference to those trying to cut down on meat consumption. So by saying this, he was saying that this Impossible Whopper was pretty much meant for people just trying to cut down on meat consumption and not those vegetarian and vegan audiences. The fourth outcome was on the United Kingdom's Burger King website, and they said the Impossible Whopper is plant-based. However, it's cooked on our same broiler as our original Whopper to deliver the same unique flame grilled taste. Due to sharing cooking equipment, it may not be suitable for vegetarians. And another Burger King website said that customers can still request separate broiler and no mayonnaise on their burger. So a separate broiler, since it was cooked on the same broiler as meat products, they could request that different cooking method, which would be a separate broiler or also in the oven. And then there's also the no mayonnaise option. Like I mentioned before, vegans couldn't have mayonnaise because of the eggs that are in it. So despite the lawsuit that Burger King went through and the backlash that they were receiving from media and vegetarian and vegan audiences, the Impossible Whopper is still on the menu today. Some theories and concepts that we've learned this semester that apply to this are as follows. The first one I have is relationship management theory, which is the process of managing the relationships between an organization and its internal and external publics, or also identifying relationships as the core of public relations. Burger King didn't really seem to build or maintain a relationship with all of their audiences. They chose to sort of focus on people who were cutting down on meat consumption instead of also focusing on the audiences that were vegetarian and vegan. So I think they could have definitely done a better job at that. Another theory is one of the media effect theories, which is the agenda setting theory. And this results from the kind of attention that are given to news events by the media. This was sort of, the Whopper got a lot of attention when it was first announced that it would be released on their menu and also during the lawsuit. So, and hot issue publics goes hand in hand with agenda setting theory. And these publics are active on a single issue that involves nearly everyone and receives a lot of media attention. But as time goes on and the media dies down, people seem to forget about it. So this applies to vegetarian and vegan audiences because, like I just mentioned, the Impossible Whopper was getting a lot of attention from these audiences when it was first announced that it'd be on their menu and during the lawsuit as well. Some concepts that apply to this are ethics and the basics of PR ethics. So ethics is moral philosophy, values in dealing with moral value or obligation. And the basics of PR ethics that apply to this are being open and honest, don't hide relevant information, and treat your publics with respect. So being open and honest and don't hide relevant information sort of go hand in hand here, because Burger King wasn't really announcing too much that it wasn't going to be vegan and vegetarian friendly. They sort of hid that information away by making it not as important. So this was a little confusing to those vegetarian and vegan audiences. And then treating your publics with respect, Burger King didn't really do this when they didn't keep those audiences in mind. And if they did that, it sort of would have been more respectful. And the last few concepts I have are reputation management and reputation. Reputation management is when organizations need to think of how practices are viewed by their stakeholders, and reputation is the sum of all the views and beliefs held about the organization based on its history and its future prospects. So I think Burger King, if they treated their all audiences better, then they would have had a better reputation in the end. But because they didn't really react to those vegetarian and vegan audiences super nice or fairly, their reputation sort of went down a little bit and they didn't manage it very well. And I think if they tried to focus more on those audiences and made the Impossible Whopper more suitable for those diets, then it would have looked better on their reputation. So to head into the analysis, some things that I think Burger King could have done differently was a different advertising approach. Some of the advertisements they had were a little misleading, and as you can see here on the right, they used the 100% Whopper and 0% beef saying a lot throughout this, the advertisements of the Impossible Whopper. And this sort of implies that it was going to be vegetarian or vegan since it says 0% beef. So that was definitely a little misleading. I think they sort of, like I mentioned before, hid relevant information, or they made it hard to find. I mentioned before how there is that asterisk announcement at the bottom. Burger King stated that there was, and you can see underneath the paragraph on here, there's an asterisk, and in small lettering it says, for guests looking for a meat-free option, a non-broiler method of preparation is available upon request. So yes, it was good that Burger King did still include this in some way, but it was very hard to find, and it was in small lettering. So I think if this were in a TV commercial or like on a poster or on a billboard or website, people wouldn't really find it very well, and that's relevant information. And so I think they should have done a better job at that. Something else I think they could have done differently was the response to those vegetarian and vegan audiences. I'm sort of bothered by the comment that Tony Vernelli made, and to recap on that, he said, cooking on the same grill makes no difference to those trying to cut down on meat consumption. So although this is true, he really disregarded those vegetarian and vegan audiences, and I think he should have been a little more empathetic because by putting himself in their shoes, he maybe would have realized that those diets are really focused on the non-meat and dairy products, like trying to find things like that. And I think people like Burger King and other big restaurants need to start thinking about that and making options for them. Some key takeaways I got from this was how people need to advertise all important information. So like I said before, I think that Burger King didn't really make it clear that it was non-vegetarian and non-vegan. And I think this ended up hurting them in the end, since they did have to go through that lawsuit and the backlash from media and vegetarian and vegan audiences. And back to going to the basics of PR ethics, they hid relevant information. So I think that, and also being open and honest, are always things to consider while, working for advertising or PR. Something else that I took away from this was focusing on management reputation with all audiences and not just your main audience. So I think that they need to treat all audiences the same. And the way they reacted, they didn't really think about those vegetarian and vegan audiences, and in a way sort of put the blame on them for not realizing that they did have information saying that it wasn't going to be suitable for their diets. So I think if Burger King took more of the blame there, they would have had a better reputation, and if they were more responsible, it just would have looked better on them in the end. So in conclusion, I think that Burger King did a great job at coming up with a new innovative menu option that would reach wider audiences, such as those audiences that are trying to cut down on meat consumption. I think they almost reached those vegetarian and vegan audiences, and if they did make the Impossible Whopper more suitable for their diets, I think that they would have reached those audiences. But Burger King and Burger Kings across the globe, and international Burger Kings, have actually added new plant-based options to their menu, as you can see here on the right. In Germany, they have actually released plant-based nuggets, which I think is pretty cool. And then also other fast food restaurants have plant-based options on the way. I know McDonald's, Taco Bell, and Chipotle have all talked about more plant-based options for vegetarians and vegans. So in the end, I think Burger King has definitely learned from this, and they are still selling the Impossible Whopper and other plant-based options today. So here are my citations in APA form, and also another page. You can click on them and it'll take you straight to the website. So thank you for listening, and have a great day.